What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Broad Street Boys podcast. I am 4 for 4 Philly fan.
And I'm Tim from Tim Talks Philly.
And today we're going to be talking about what everybody's talking about here in Philadelphia and in New Jersey and in Delaware. Eagles free agency 2023 opened up on Monday at 1 o'clock. A lot of stuff has been going on. Some good, some bad, some, a little upsetting if you're an Eagles fan. But it's free agency. We know we were going to lose guys. We know we were going to gain guys, and we know we were going to bring guys back. So when you do that, I can't really be mad at anything that Howie has done so far, except for maybe the first topic, and that is Darius Slay was released today. Obviously, we know that we brought Bradberry back yesterday, and that's the next topic that we're going to hit on. But Slay was released today, and it sucks. Obviously, Darius Slay has been on the Eagles for the last 3 years, 7 interceptions. Just a really good team captain to have, and one of the best cornerbacks in all of football. And when you lose a guy like that, especially with a cornerback duo like a Bradberry and a Slay, it definitely does suck. But I do see some things in hopefully the near future that happen after this Darius Slay releasing to maybe make us feel a little bit better. So, but it definitely sucks to lose Darius Slay on a day like today. So,
Yeah, that hurts. I mean, the Bradberry signing was a very, very big shock, and I guess we probably should have saw this coming as a result of that. But I know me personally, I saw the Bradberry news and I was nonstop saying, "Hey, we got Darius Slay and Bradberry back as our 1-2 punch." Yeah, Slay kind of took a step back last year towards that second half, but I mean, still a great 1-2 tandem there, and then getting all the reports like, oh, they're probably going to trade him, probably going to release him. We'll see what happens. And the official news today, I mean, I was at the gym and it was just my jaw dropped. It was like that's tough. It kind of counteracts that Bradberry signing and the feeling we got from that, because we went from, all right, Slay's your one, Bradberry's your two, to, or even before that, you went from thinking you were losing Bradberry. You had, all right, Slay's our one, maybe Witherspoon two, and whatever kind of move you made there, which would have been fine, to, all right, Slay one, Bradberry two, yay, we're back, and then now back at, oh, Bradberry one. It's a little bit change of pace, but that's what's going to happen when when you got a quarterback who's ready to make their money. You're gonna lose some big pieces, and you got to show that you know how to draft. You mentioned earlier, with Howie having to get things done. Listen, I think Howie's earned the right to have respect put back on his name. But if we're being completely fair, this is what his most recent problem was. The last time we had a big issue with Howie was what he was able to do after Carson Wentz got handed his big contract. And I don't really have a problem with him getting deals done with the quarterback. We all loved the Carson Wentz deal when it was done. It was done at a good time where, you saved money and you put Dak and the Cowboys in that tough situation. So I have faith that he's going to do the right things when it comes to extending Hurts. Obviously, the Carson thing got hurt, kind of started falling off the train. No one could have predicted that. No one really thought that was going to happen. So I can trust him with getting the job done with Hurts, but I'm going to have to sit here and see how he structures his team on a restricted salary cap here. And so far, yeah, you're seeing the dividends of that with losing your number one cornerback.
yeah. And look, Slay, again, fan favorite, one of the players that in the very end of that Carson that we got, because we got Slay at the very experiment. And look, Slay was a fan favorite. He was one of the best defenders that we've seen here in Philadelphia, one of the best cornerbacks. And we've had a lot of really good cornerbacks in, the Eagles' history. So for Darius Slay to be, another one, it just sucks that we had to lose him. But speaking of Bradberry, obviously, the Eagles did sign James Bradberry back, and he will now be cornerback one. Don't know who will be cornerback two yet. Obviously, we have two first round picks in this year's draft and a deep cornerback draft. And, there's still free agents out there that we know, could make a splash. We saw that last year with a couple of the guys that we were signing later towards the end of free agency and even for trades. I mean, look, James Bradberry last year, this year was still on the Giants. He was there up until a month before the season, gets released, and then he comes to the Eagles and we sign him. And now he's back for 3 years, 38 mil. It's cheaper than what I thought that it would have to have taken to get him back in Eagles green. And it's just nice to know that, his statement was basically, look, I love playing here. I love the fans. I love the city. And I want to continue playing here and, try to win a Super Bowl because when you're that close and, maybe the reasoning why he came back was unfinished business. And you can tell that with a lot of guys that are choosing to come back for another year or taking less money or whatever the case may have been. A lot of these guys that are free agents, they look at the Eagles and they're saying, look, they were a play away from winning the whole thing. And, I want to go and I want to help them go get my bag. We see it all the time with these teams with they win a Super Bowl on a 1-year contract, they go and get it back. It literally just happened with Juju Smith. And he won a Super Bowl, was on a 1-year contract with the Chiefs, left, got $33 million with the Patriots. He's not worth $33 million, but he got the bag because he won a Super Bowl. And that's what happens when you win a Super Bowl and you're a big part of that reason. And he did play a role in that in the Super Bowl game. So
yeah, he's only worth 33 mil if you put him up against a guy who's going to hold him. Other than that, he's a bum.
Yeah. Juju's a clown, and I'm glad that we play him next year so we can smoke them and the Patriots and show that he's a little clown.
Yeah, but listen, I always love hearing that a guy we took from the Giants chooses to come back on a little bit of a team-friendly deal, if you want to call it that, because he loves the city. So that's always nice to hear. But yeah, I mean, he mentioned it. He said there were some other lucrative offers available for him, and he just ultimately decided, hey, the difference in money isn't worth the difference of team culture and comfort for him. And that's big for us. I mean, that was a guy I kind of had in the beginning as don't expect to bring him back. It was amazing that we were able to get him in for this year. He played really, really well, but I was not expecting to see him in midnight green and Kelly green next year. So that's pretty cool. I mean, 3 years, 38 million, that's, 12.6 AAV. He's a guy that's going to be now having to head the top of that defense there in the secondary. And, listen, 3 years, I like the deal because you're not tying yourself to him for too long. He's playing well right now. If it gives you some flexibility towards the end there, but 20 million guaranteed. It was a really good signing and something that I was really, really excited about, but I was kind of blinded to the truth when it came to what was likely going to happen with that Darius Slay situation. We're probably going to go into more depth what they're going to do with that secondary spot when it comes to the draft. We're probably going to go through and do our own little mocks and see what the most likely scenarios are. But there's options. I think even if the guy you want doesn't fall in the draft, there's guys you can go and grab, whether you want to do that in the first round, you want to wait and get a young guy that can kind of develop under Bradberry. There's options. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you weren't able to, I think you not being able to make something work with Slay was part of the reason you maybe upped your money to go get Bradberry. But if you would have lost both of these guys, that would have really, really hurt. So getting Bradberry back was really big.
Yeah, and I think that was a big look. I mean, look, Bradberry just signed 3 years. Now, Slay was 33 when he left the Eagles. James Bradberry will be 32, 33 by the time that his contract is up. So we like to, get these cornerbacks at their prime. We got Darius Slay when he was 29. We got James Bradberry when he was 28 and now 29. And we locked them up for a few years until their early 30s. And then, if they could still play, which I'm not saying Darius Slay can't, but the contracts did not work. You cannot pay a 33-year-old $17 million this season when you have a quarterback to play for and when you would have been losing Bradberry anyways. If Darius Slay was still on the team, They were never restructuring that contract. They were never doing it. No way they give him $17 million, $17 million. And so they said, look, okay, we'll go a different route then. Thank you for your time here. We will always love you here in Philadelphia. Fans coming from, you know, the organization. But if Bradberry wanted less money, AAV, way less money than Darius Slay wanted, I'm taking that 100 times out of 100. I mean, it's not like this guy is a slouch. He just was an All-Pro cornerback on a team that reached the Super Bowl, and he was an All-Pro. He was a Pro Bowler. He was whatever. He was the top cornerback in the league last year. He was one of the top two cornerbacks in all of football last season. And now we lock this guy up until his early 30s, and it's on a cheaper deal because it's really not that bad when you even look down the line. So I like the move a lot, and it also brings you know another topic back up that we will touch on for another player. I mean, there's just a lot that could happen with this Bradbury deal. So you know, I like the deal. But going into our next topic, and another guy that has come back to the Philadelphia Eagles, and this decision was up in the air at the end of the season. You just lost a Super Bowl, and you're up there in age, and you don't know if he's coming back, but he's back, and that's Jason Kelsey, $14 million 1 year. Who knows if this is the last time that we'll have to do this with Jason Kelsey in retirement, but the fact that you got Jason Kelsey back for next season, it's kind of a run it back mentality. And how he can pitch that into some free agents' ears and say, look, this is the last dance with Jason Kelsey. We want to get him a ring. We're going for that Super Bowl. We're pushing all the chips in, and we're moving forward with Jason Kelsey as our center, as our team leader, and as the face of the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And, I love that Jason Kelsey's back for another year because you don't retire when you're at the very top of your game. You retire if you win at the very top, but you don't retire when you're at the top still playing.
Yeah, don't get this twisted. This is by no stretch of the imagination a Jason Peters situation. I mean, this guy isn't just tagging along because he wants an extra buck and thinks he can still play. He's still playing at the top of his game. And it just came down to, is it something that he was able to do with, something he was able to make work with his family situation, and was that right? But the Eagles being able to bring back Jason Kelsey is huge. I mean, there's so many different parts moving right now when it comes to the line. If he goes, you're bringing in Juergens as your future center, but the question is he ready? And nobody knows that officially yet. You would have to see that in camp. But now, with already potentially losing Isaac Seumalo, you have that flexibility now on that line. You bring him back, now you're still the best offensive line in the NFL, and even though you're making all these defensive changes, you don't have to worry about your offense taking a step back. You can continue to believe that Hurts can still progress and get better. You got, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, another year under their belts. They're both still very young receivers. Despite A.J. Brown feeling like he's 30 years old because of his track record, these guys are both really young and growing. And the line being able to stay intact is huge. Now you're just going to have to figure out that guard situation. But I think you're in a much better position having to say, all right, is Juergens going to be able to slide into that part? Do we want him to slide into that guard role? Or do we want to bring in somebody else, draft somebody, compared to, all right, Kelsey's gone, we have to throw Juergens in at center, and now who are we going to put in at guard? So Kelsey is a fan favorite. Everybody loves him. It was almost more excitement about him still being on the team as a person than as a player, just because how beloved he is in this city. But yeah, just something that everyone was kind of waiting to see what his decision was, because it's, as much as it's important for the team, this city loves the guy, and it's really good. It's really good for everyone in that organization, especially that he decided to put the cleats on for another year.
Yeah, I mean, that locker room, him being in that locker room is, good enough to get you to another Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl. He just does so much for that team, and thank God for Jalen Hurts, because without him, he probably would have been gone 2 years already. Probably would have been
Mhm.
on his way to the Hall of Fame already. But thank God he's back. But more like not sad, but other bad news really. Just the players that left. I'll just go over them real quick. Where they went. I don't have the tracks in front of me or anything like that, but Javon Hargrave, I know that deal was $84 million. That's insane. The Eagles were never doing that. And look, congratulations, good luck in San Fran. A little, weird that you would go there, but you got the bag, and you weren't getting that from us. And I don't blame you for leaving. Kazir White, sucks that we didn't bring you back on a contract like that, but he goes to the Cardinals, and TJ Edwards, same thing. It wasn't a bad contract that the Bears gave him, just a little bit, out of our range for what else we still have to acquire for this team. Same thing with Marcus Epps. We don't need another safety to worry about re-signing right now when we already have CJ Gardner Johnson that we still need to re-sign. And you also have Reed Blankenship. And then Andre Dillard, that dude's a wizard because he got $10 million
Give me
years
his agent.
absurd.
Give me that agent. Holy Lord. Yeah, he got himself a bag, and from the playing time he was getting, I guess the Titans saw enough and said, hey, he was a first-round pick. He improved, whatever. But, man, I like the idea of potentially bringing him back on a one-year deal, and didn't think it was going to happen, didn't really count on it. But, man, whoever that agent is an absolute wizard, because that's a hell of a contract right there for Andre Dillard. Yeah, all of those I agree. Hargrave was a guy I really wanted us to bring back, but, oh, man, did he get the bag. I mean, I think good for him, but I think the Niners, that one's going to hurt the Niners. Maybe not this upcoming year, but going down in the future, that's a 4-year deal. I don't know what you're going to do with your quarterback situation, but if you want to go sign a guy, that's going to make that really difficult. You have an aging Javon Hargrave making, 21 mil a year. That's crazy. I mean, I think he deserves that money. He played for that contract. But I mean, like, that's going to be tough for them. It's really going to bolster their defensive line, but this is a team that's already has some holes. One major one being the quarterback, which we're experiencing that right now, how important it is that you have the money to dedicate to your quarterback. It's that's something that a 4-year deal extends a long time, and they don't know what they're going to be doing in 4 years, but they better hope it's not paying for a quarterback, or they're going to have to do something like what we had to do with Slay and find a way to move on from him. But good for him. I love Javon Hargrave. He was one of the most underrated players on this team. He just did the job every single time he went in. Fletcher Cox was always the name that kind of shined off that card, but it was Javon Hargrave that was doing the heavy load in the middle of that line the past couple of years. So good for him. Other than that, you mentioned the Kazir White deal and how, yeah, 2 years, 11 mil. I'm sorry. I thought he played well enough to bring him back on that kind of deal. I'm not in, the negotiation situation. I guess he really enjoyed playing for Gannon and just said, hey, I'll take less money to go continue to play with you. But yeah, that was a deal I saw. I was like, that's all he got. I thought he was a lock to not be back just because he was going to get a good amount of money after what seemingly felt like a really good contract with us after, the Chargers let him go. After that, Edwards with the Bears, another, good for him. I don't think I would have done that deal. It wasn't a bad one by any stretch of the imagination, but I just think Edwards is a guy who we view so highly because what he was able to do for what he was expected to do. I mean, it's the same reason why a lot of people viewed, Jalen Mills so highly, came in as a 7th-round pick and ended up being a number 1 corner on a Super Bowl team, albeit didn't play that well in the Super Bowl. But ultimately, there's going to be options at linebacker. It's typically a position that this team doesn't value very much, which was why it was such a shock we went and got Nakobe Dean last year, but had to wait for him to fall to the 3rd round. But yeah, that, good for him. I'm excited to, see how he does with the Bears. The Bears look like they're making a lot of moves right now, and they're going to be exciting within the next couple of years. So happy to see him go get his money. And then Marcus Epps, yeah, it's making me think more and more that either you're going to go and bring Gardner Johnson back after letting Epps go like that, or you're going to make a move for another one of the top safeties on the market, or maybe draft somebody, because you have a big hole there. And last year we were going into the season with, Epps there and maybe Kevon Wallace. And you said, hey, that wasn't enough. Let's go get Gardner Johnson. Well, now you don't even have Epps. So I know there's it's a little bit different because we don't have as much money to work with. But if Howie's running this team the same way he was last year, he knows, like, listen, there's not a whole lot of holes here. There's some areas we can improve, but there's not a whole lot of holes. Safety is one of the biggest holes right now on this team. And I don't think he lets Gardner Johnson just, take an offer elsewhere. I think they're going to try and bring him back.
Yeah, I think CJ Gardner Johnson is as good as back as this point. Look, and this is what I said to a couple of my friends that are Eagles fans that were really mad about the Darius Slade releasing. Here's my thing: would you rather be Gardner Johnson? Did you hear any of that?
No, you kind of broke up a little bit there. Sorry.
Yeah. So, as I'm saying, with my friends, I was talking to them about the Darius Slay releasing, and basically said to them was Bradberry and CJ Gardner Johnson or John. It really kind of came down to that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking with right what we're gonna likely have in Bradberry and Gardner Johnson. I mean, these two guys were honestly probably the better performers the second half that season compared to, Darius Slay. So I think, bringing these guys back, they're so young, which is different with Darius Slay. This is a team that when you start to pay your quarterback, you need to get younger. You need to really focus on that. And although these are two guys that, are younger but still going to be getting big deals, I think it's very, very important also for that locker room. I think Gardner Johnson played a huge role in kind of that defensive leadership towards the back half of that season. Even though he got hurt, I mean, seeing him kind of the Twitter wars after that Super Bowl, him kind of coming to the defense of AJ Brown and Bradberry. I mean, this is a guy that seems like he's Philly, and it was something that upset a lot of people when you thought he was going to go. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I got written down here. You look at the Jesse Bates contract, 64.02 million, 4 years. It's gonna take a little bit to sign him. I think Jesse Bates is definitely a better safety than Gardner Johnson, but Gardner Johnson also led the league in interceptions. I'm not sure if he did total at the end of the year, but at least for the games he played, I mean, he just he went out and balled on a contract year. So you're going to have to give him money, but I think he's very, very valuable to this team. You already lost some serious veterans on that defense, and I think losing him is kind of going to be too big of a blow for you to kind of come back from, especially when we look at all these positions. It's who are you losing? Who can you replace him with? I think right now safety is the most obvious position that you're losing something that you're not even going to be able to get close to equal value back. So I think that's why we're hearing all these reports that they're working really, really hard to get him back. But I could confidently say at this point, after losing Darius Slay, that Gardner Johnson's still going to be an Eagle going into next year.
Yeah, and I know all Eagles fans are going to be happy about that because I've never in my life seen a group of fans ask somebody to come back as much as they have asked CJ Gardner Johnson to.
Mm-hmm.
Every tweet, every Instagram post, it's just been don't leave, don't leave, don't leave, come back, come back, come back. And I'm like, this is insane.
We
And I
love
know
that.
that Howie Roseman is the biggest person with listening to the fans. I know
Mm-hmm.
he's the biggest one in the city that does that, GM wise. And you know he sees it. And that's kind of how the Eagles run. They run. They're not a fan based organization. They're not like the Packers. They're not fan run. like they are. It's but the fans have a lot of say and they have a lot of input to what happens with this team, even though they're not spending any of the money. I know that the higher ups and the organization of the Eagles, they definitely do listen. And I again, like you said, I think CJ Gardner Johnson is coming back to the Eagles, and we'll just have to worry about how much and for how long. But in other news, there was a new player that was just signed with the Eagles yesterday. A little bit of a low risk, high reward type of guy, in my opinion, and Rashad Penny. I heard a little bit about it, him maybe flirting around with the Eagles, and some guys saying like, "Oh, like maybe we should give Rashad Penny a chance." And in 2021, Rashad Penny ran for 743 rushing yards on 119 attempts, and he averaged 6.3 yards per carry with 6 touchdowns. I mean, this guy is a solid football player, but the number one thing is that he cannot stay on the field, and that's his biggest issue. He only played 10 games in 2021, and he only played like 5 games last year. He's always been in. He's never been in 10 games in his career. And with this move, it's looking like Kenneth Gainwell is going to be taking a big leap in the running back room with being the number one guy, because I don't know if you can have Rashad Penny be your number one back for 17 games of an NFL season. I don't know if it's possible. I would like to, because 6.3 yards a carry. That, I mean, he's a first round pick. He's a good running back. He just can't stay healthy.
Yeah, a lot of talent out of this guy. You'd like to think he could stay healthy because he can contribute a lot. All the kind of things you said. Last 2 years, averaging 6.2 yards a carry. That's big, but not a whole lot of carries. I mean, you're looking the last 2 years. If you think this, I agree with the Kenny Gainwell approval, because if you're looking at these last 2 years, 2021, 119 attempts, 2022 obviously only played 5 games, 57 attempts. You're looking at Miles Sanders last year, who had 259 attempts in all 17 games. I mean, you're you're looking at this team who is typically a running back by committee, which that would be okay. But yeah, you're going from Miles Sanders, who had well over 200 attempts last year, to a guy who had 50 some last year. And you can't bank on a guy coming off an injury, especially a running back who's so tailored to that, which makes me think that they could go and still make a move mid rounds in the draft this year. I know we don't have a whole lot of picks, but I can see them kind of bringing a guy in to maybe take a chance on. But I think they saw a lot of good stuff from Kenny Gainwell in the back half of the season, that they're saying, look, we obviously addressed the need. We needed to bring somebody else in, but let's take a chance on a guy who's obviously incredibly talented, has had trouble staying on the field, but ultimately you're looking at Gainwell taking the reins next year. If I'm kind of evaluating the signing as it happened, you gave a guy a cheap deal and said, hey, please stay healthy and you'll play a good role in this team. But if not, we're not banking on you. We're not paying you for over $4 million a year. We're giving this guy less than $2 million a year. So I love the signing, because I don't mind taking a chance on him as long as they address the back half of this running back room appropriately. But yeah, a guy who obviously when he's on the field has tremendous upside.
Yeah, and look, again, 6.3 yards a carry is the best in the league over the last couple of years. He just can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
And again, low risk, high reward. And you also got Boston Scott back for a 1 year deal. And it's not, and the thing with the Rashad Penny deal, you didn't break the bank on it. There's only $600,000 guaranteed on that contract, and there's only like $1 million guaranteed for Boston Scott. Your running backs are making a total of like $5 million, and you have three guys who, one is a question mark, and that's Penny. Two, can run a little bit with Boston Scott. You've had him long enough. And then Kenneth Gainwell is your guy that you're hoping that can break out. And look, running behind the best offensive line in football and being able to catch out of the backfield, unlike a Miles Sanders, That's huge for the Eagles. And, it could be a big breakout for Kenneth Gainwell. And we kind of saw that in the playoffs a little bit. So I'm very excited to see what Kenneth Gainwell can do and take that leap forward as the next Eagles running back, because we all know Miles Sanders is not coming back. He's going to want too much money, even though we haven't heard a single thing about Miles Sanders
Hmm.
all off
Yeah,
season.
yeah. But I mean, look, Penny, I get you can't stay healthy. We only need you healthy for 15 games. Boston Scott's going to take two other ones that we know he's going to perform a little bit to an elite standard at the New York Giants. But look, this was a deal that was well thought out. It was, hey, let's just throw him some money. We can't afford to throw a big bag at a running back right now with all the moves we have to make. David Montgomery just got 3 years, 18 million. Miles Sanders had a really, really good year. He had a Pro Bowl year, career high in yards, I believe. I mean, this guy just balled out. He's going to go somewhere and get a solid contract, and that was something we couldn't afford to deal with. So it sucks. He was another fan favorite that it's going to be hard to see let go. But we all kind of knew it coming in. Miles Sanders, as much as he was loved in the city, he didn't really provide anything too special that can't be replaced. So I mean, we got very, very lucky that he was healthy all of last year, but it's another thing we haven't seen from him consistently. So I wouldn't have been comfortable giving him a good amount of money over a long period of time. But look, you're giving Rashad Penny a shot. I'm excited to see what he's able to do because he's very, very talented. But yeah, I mean, bringing Boston Scott back, you're kind of locking up that running back room. I'm excited to see how it turns out.
Yeah. And look, pretty much the last thing that, I kind of want to touch on is you have a pick. You have
Mm-hmm.
pick 10. And this kind of, goes back to the Bradberry Slay thing with, oh, you're not going to have a cornerback too. Well, whatever. You have two first round picks. You have pick 10, you have pick 31. You have, you know, other picks later in rounds. You're going to get picks from losing guys, Sayamalu and Fletch, and who knows who else. But I'm asking everybody watching, and I'm asking you, do you take a cornerback at 10? If the best available cornerback is at 10, do you take him as your cornerback too?
I think after this Slay news, I probably would. I've also contemplated, which we'll kind of talk about in the specifics when we get to potential mocks and more so draft focused. I like the idea of potentially trading up for a difference maker on the defense. I don't know if I would do it for corner. I think if we stay at 10, I like some of the prospects we can get there. But I think corner in terms of cornerback, I think that's a pretty important need to fill there at 10, especially because I kind of predicting that we're going to trade out of that. If we don't trade up, I can see us trading out of that last spot in the first round, just kind of like what we did with the Ravens and when Lamar Jackson was drafted, get a couple extra picks in a draft that we really don't have a whole lot in. But yeah, I think it's right now one of those big needs that we've been blessed with this past year having two corners where we didn't have to stress about cornerbacks, which has been our life for the past, whole entire, Eagles franchise, lifespan there. But it's something that I think is going to be incredibly important now that you have so many teams just bulking up on wide receivers, and it's hard enough to have a guy in there that's going to stop someone's number one. Well, when you're facing teams that their number two is just as good as anyone else's number one, you need to make sure you have a second guy in there. So I like a couple of the corners that should be available in that 10 spot. And if I had to place betting odds on something, I think cornerback would be the favorite there at 10.
I agree. I think now that you do lose Darius Slay, you kind of have to look at corner. It's a deep class for cornerbacks. You got a lot of guys that could go 10 through 20 and 20 through 30. Like, there's guys all over this draft. And we've seen a lot of really good cornerbacks come out of the last couple of drafts. Patrick Surtain, Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley. Like, you have these guys that go within the top 10 of picks. Surtain was 9. Sauce was 4. 3 was Stingley. 10's not that far. I mean, if you get a Patrick Surtain at round and I'm not saying you are. Patrick Surtain and Sauce Gardner are two of the top 5 cornerbacks in all of football, and they might both be top 3. I'm not saying you're going to get a Sauce and a PS2, but I'm saying that you could get. I don't need a Darius Slay. When Darius Slay is 33 years old, I'm not saying that he's not still a very good cornerback, but he didn't have a better season than James Bradberry. And you could still re-sign CJ Gardner Johnson now because you got rid of Slay.
Yeah.
So if you take a corner at 10, well, now you have Bradberry, CJ Gardner Johnson if he resigns, Reed Blankenship, and then cornerback 2, pick 10. And then you still have Maddox at your slot. As long as Maddox isn't my cornerback 2, I'm okay. Because Maddox, we've seen, cannot be the cornerback 2.
Mm-hmm.
He has to play in the slot.
Needs to be in the slot.
Needs to be.
Yeah.
And we'll do mock drafts, I'm sure. We're definitely going to have a couple podcasts coming out that deal with the mock drafts. I mean, it's only a month away, as crazy as that is, but it's in April, and it's obviously a fun time to make your mocks. And depending on how many picks we have, I mean, we already have decent round picks, so it's gonna be fun. And if you guys aren't and you do like talking Philly sports, then make sure to subscribe to both of our channels. Links will be in the description below. But do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, a couple things with that last point. Yeah, I mean, there's been some great corners coming out of that early part of the first round the last couple of years. So that's why it gives me a little bit more confidence to go, hey, yeah, let's bring one of them guys in, give them a couple years to learn, and I think we'll be set there. Last real signing the Eagles had, bringing Brandon Graham back on a 1-year deal for $6 million. I think that's absolutely huge. I think it's a place he wants to be. He's still performing at a really high level. Again, just an absolutely amazing year coming off of what usually is a career-ending injury. So I still think he's got a lot left in the tank. And then if did you want to touch on a couple of the moves so far within the division, and then kind of signed off here? I mean, yeah. I know the big one so far has been Ezekiel Elliott being released, and that's it's like cool because we hate him, but at the same time, like, he was almost hurting the Cowboys, it felt like. So. But that was big. What are your thoughts on the Eagles potentially, at least even bringing him into camp and seeing what he's got left in the tank?
I don't think there's a chance that the Eagles do that. There's no way. And I honestly can't tell you where Zeke's going to go. Does he go to the Bengals because of the whole Joe Mixon situation? Does he go to wherever at this point? I mean, look, Zeke probably wants to come here because running behind our offensive line is something that he's done pretty much his whole career. He's always ran behind the best offensive line until it wasn't the best offensive line in football, and then he couldn't run anymore. But who knows where Zeke's going? That's why, Jerry Jones, you don't pay running back $64 million, you dope. This is why Miles Sanders isn't getting a contract here, because of things like this. Because Ezekiel Elliott's prime was in his rookie contract, and the very next year you gave him that money, he was terrible. He can't run. He's so slow. He can't do anything. Tony Pollard is the RB1 in Dallas, and that actually sucks for us. I wish Ezekiel Elliott was still on the Cowboys. Cowboys fans should be happy about this.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of done with the whole take and wash Cowboys players after DeMarco Murray, Orlando Scandrick. Like, please stay away. I don't want you guys. I'll take wash Giants players, but I don't need the dirty Dallas players coming over here. It hasn't seemed to fare too well for us. But then the last one really was what broke a little bit ago. Jacoby Brissett over to the Commanders. Nick Sirianni touched on possibly bringing him in as a backup quarterback for us. He really says he's a great locker room guy, but now as of now is going to be over there heading the Commanders. What do you think they're going to kind of take? What direction do you think they're going to go in terms of the quarterback after that signing?
I have no idea what Washington is doing.
You mean Carson Wentz didn't play well enough to bring him back? You don't think they're going to lock him up long term?
No, I
Oh
think
no! Oh, I was
yeah.
fooled.
Who would have thought? I don't know why you, why would you take somebody else's trash like that? I don't understand. But look, Washington's Washington. They'll always be.
Until they go at one until they sell the team, which seems like it's going to be soon, unfortunately. Oh. But until they go and sell the team and go get a franchise quarterback rather than trying to pull a Colts and just take all these wash guys every single year and think they're going to take your mediocre defense to the next level. I mean, they're going to be the joke of the NFC East. And if Jacoby Brissett is playing against the Eagles 2 games a year, I mean, two games next year, I'm locking them in as 2 wins, which I probably already am no matter who's going to be at quarterback. But I don't think that's going to be their move. That might be their kind of backup plan if they're not able to make something work with a quarterback in the draft. But they don't have an incredible pick. Where are they at in that first round? I'm trying to remember what their pick is.
They're probably right out of the top. You know, right.
Yeah, I think they're
before the
right. I think they're right outside the top 10 around. But yeah, so there's a good amount of decent high upside quarterbacks here, depending on what the run is on them. You might be able to bring a quarterback in, but I can see them bringing a guy in and having him not start, have him 1 year under Jacoby Brissett, kind of see how he does, and then figuring it out that way. But that's kind of what I got from that deal. I think they will end up drafting someone with that first pick, and then kind of give him some time to work behind Jacoby Brissett there. But other than that, those are my main touches. I think from guys that we haven't re-signed, Fletcher Cox is going to be an interesting one. I think he's kind of lost his chance to go get a big bag, so I think there's a possibility he comes back. But ultimately, I don't count on it. I'm expecting him to sign elsewhere. But yeah, other than that, free agency it's been a wild start. I mean, it's only been officially started for 48 minutes here, but we've been getting news the past couple of days, and Howie seems like he's really trying hard. He's gonna have to do his best work to give Jalen Hurts a record-setting contract and still manage to bring this team back to the Super Bowl. But so far, at least some exciting news and a lot of players on the move.
Yeah, the only move I need left is CJ Gardner.
Yep.
Johnson. Guys, follow us on Twitter, Tim Talks Philly and 444 Philly Fan. If you follow both of us on Twitter, I have been in CJ Gardner's Johnson's Twitter all day, and that's all he's been doing is talking and putting. He's trolling us, but I know that AJ Brown was trolling us yesterday with a whole fruit conversation, talking about everybody needs to relax. So I think CJ Gardner Johnson's just playing around with us, and I think by the time that the Philadelphia Eagles are about to suit up and play a football game in September, CJ Gardner Johnson will probably be that first guy running out of the tunnel, getting ready to play a game on Thursday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs or against the San Fran 49ers. Because that's what I believe that the first game of the season will be. One of those two. You run it back with the Super Bowl or you run it back with the NFC Championship game, who just lost arguably their best pass rusher outside of Hassan Reddick last year to that team. And, that whole –
and the whole drama between it, too.
At least they got Sam Darnold, though. They actually finally got a quarterback.
Oh, they got, an absolute stud. Let's just knock him out next year, too.
Can't wait for Trey Lance to start one game and be benched for Brock Purdy again. And then he'll actually take an NFL hit again by Hassan Reddick and probably be out 6 months again.
Yeah.
But keep using – I mean, you guys are just in no man's land with that quarterback job. I have no idea what you're trying to do. Sam Darnold's terrible. Brock Purdy's terrible. Trey Lance, I mean, he's on my dynasty team in fantasy, and, man.
It's just by the off chance maybe he runs around crazy, yeah.
It's so bad. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching the Broad Street Podcast. Philly sports, talking all of it. Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, and Flyers sometimes because, it's the Flyers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But
don't worry. We'll talk about them a lot more when they sell the team. So far, I love what they –
yeah, when they sell the team and –
so far, I already got rid of Fletch and put Danny Briere in. So they're keeping me a happy camper, but it's definitely not enough to give them money to go to a game.
Yeah. If somehow the NHL rigs it for the Flyers in the lottery.
They're close. They're like five. They're like five.
Fifth worst team in the league.
Do you believe in miracles? I don't
Keep
know.
losing. Keep on losing. Bench Carter Hart for the rest of the year.
Yeah, right. He,
But
he he's got a lower body injury, right? Yeah,
yeah,
that's it. Yeah, just rest him up.
yeah, I'll leave him out for a little bit. I think it'll help the team a little bit more. But yeah, with that being said, make sure to subscribe to both of our channels. Make sure to always watch the Broad Street Boys podcast for all your Philly sports news. Today we talked about Eagles free agency 2023. Being said, again, thank you all so much for watching, and we're out.
Talk to you guys
Peace.
later. Go Birds.
Go Birds.